home?
They are, yeah, they're with their grandma. All right, it's roll call.
I don't even know that. Cozy. My name's Felicia.
And it's got the wall so they can't mess with each other. Cause that, you know how that little wall, they can still mess with each other around it? And then, they're moving it so people have to use that Nito hallway instead of coming through my room. And they're moving Lindsay's office to one of the rooms in the back.
Nice, that way at least someone in front, someone in front.
And mostly people need her, so they can walk through back there.
Yeah, just that way you all can do a lot of things.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be a big deal. And they're doing that like, cause they talk about all those ideas like, but it made it seem like at some point, they just decided to go ahead and do it this week. And I said, thank God, thank you so much, yeah.
Great.
Because almost all my neighbors, the brand new ones, I got their little forms and stuff, like the questionnaire, they all in charge of potty training too. That's why I can't get the little questionnaire. That's what I want to do. I want to get the little kid one for it.
Yes. Do I like come to your house or something?
They love
That's what she's got in
You
there.
don't want people watching me, so
Yeah,
that.
yeah, so I'm gonna get him. Come sit right here, just on the floor. Because whoever's right there should be able to see you. I don't know which person. Always.
Okay, sorry.
I was like, dang.
She made it would be a few months and I'll be talking.
Interesting away.
More than anything in the world. There's like a little ice cream.
Yeah, yeah.
She's on these ones there.
Yeah.
Because you can have kind of a bunch. Yeah, there's.
So we
Always get one other one. But then you give them like a little box and they give you like this little thing.
Yeah.
Need to write that down. I forgot until she did like a little haul. She's like, oh, video.
If you wanna forward them to me,
I'll make a bank account and I'll print them out.
Okay. They need them for the 4 minutes to stop fussing. Then they can go back.
You're right, you're right. Yeah, but they do that.
There's like a look at you.
Oh my God, every time I read her. Look at that, okay. I do love her so much.
Because of course, I know, all day I can revise and make everything.
Oh, but it's a good thing that she wasn't.
Serendipitous, well, like, just the way it is.
She's on first grade. She can't do
You want one? I have one.
Carter came with me. Yeah. He needed a bath. I just rubbed his tail this morning.
And I added one.
hope I spelled it wrong.
It's the hardest thing I've ever seen. It's to say that.
I waited.
Do I? Did you get it?
I do. I just, on the spot.
You don't actually have to. You don't actually have to. It's just more of a. Yeah.
I'm gonna make a.
Right. Because I like to know those little things.
Oh,
And I would print it in black and white because there's a lot of color in the slides, but they don't need the color to get the meaning. All right, so she is getting handouts, but in the value of your time, we're going to go ahead and start. If that's cool with you. And then we're going to hope my computer doesn't keep doing these spam ridiculous block-ups that I can't see.
yeah.
Well, welcome to another school year at our beautiful Sundrops here. I am in the way of the screen. I think we got the best place to stand. All right, very good. So, I'm Becky McFalls. I'm an occupational therapist, and I am thrilled to be here. I was recruited by Jeannie and Shannon at the end of last year to maybe give you guys a little bit extra support going into this school year on kids that struggle. So we're not necessarily going to throw a label on any of them. It's just to give you a few more tools in your toolkit on how to recognize what you're looking at, when to scream for help, when to try something different. And in doing it, I tried to take my 24 years of time in the trenches with kids. I mainly work with children with sensory integrative problems, autism, fine motor, visual motor, dysgraphia, and dyslexia, and kids just in general that have a hard time with self-regulation, being able to participate in your classrooms with the right energy for the right activity, okay? So today, I hope to bring you that experience. I also had a young man, Alec, who attended this wonderful institution, and I have great love for the beginning that they gave Alec. I am a huge lover of Montessori, and have worked as an OT in the Montessori system for over 12 years. So I'm the OT over at East Cooper Montessori. I'm at the Sundrops campuses. I've been over to Trinity and lots of different OT, Montessori programs around the community. So I'm bringing this to you with a Montessori slant. I have a certification in what's called relationship development intervention, which is where a lot of this information is being pulled from, as well as lots of stuff with sensory integration. I've done some reflex integration stuff that maybe you guys have heard about some through the course of your life, as well as a program called Safe and Sound that really works on some of the bottom of the pyramid stuff of helping kids that are in a state of trauma or feeling adolescent. So that's who I am. So we're going to spend about the next 90 minutes, and we'll pause somewhere in there if you get glazed over. But we're going to chat a little bit about what our classroom statistics are gonna tell us this year, as to why this might be important to you and why you're gonna want some of these things in your back pocket. Why I know every single one of you can handle these challenging kids right here at Sundrops in your classroom. And why I want you to recognize there's no better place for them but right here with you. Because I think a lot of times we think, oh, we should move them on, or we should move them to a different program, when really, in all the schools that I'm in and out of, there isn't a more nurturing, loving, open-hearted place than right here. So my hat's off to you. And then we're gonna just sort of cleanse our lens on how we're going to observe kids and challenging behavior, and see if I might get you to flip some of the stories you might have about challenging stories or challenging children, in order to see it through maybe a different lens that might help you to embrace that challenge this year. And then I hope, more than anything, that you leave today with a few new tools that you can use in your classroom. So this was my challenge that kept me up revising, was I didn't want to give you necessarily an OT degree, because I can't do that in an hour and 30 minutes. I can't overwhelm you with too much, because then you'll do nothing. And I know from my experience, when I have a lunch and learn or a little continuing ed, if I can leave with 2 or 3 things that I feel confident with, I use them. If I am given 7,000 things, then I think, oh, well, one day I'll organize that binder and I might dive in. So my goal is to give you just a few simple things to get you started. Anybody have any questions for me before we dive in? Okay. So hopefully we'll have handouts here in a minute so that you can take notes there as well. So what do the statistics tell us? So 17% of our children are going to have sensory issues. Something that's going to be bigger than just sensory development, that's going to stop them from being able to function in a classroom in a way that you expected. 26% or 25% are going to have sleep issues. 29% are going to be constipated. 17% are going to be late language developers. And 1 in 81 by the age of 8 might be diagnosed with autism. Okay, and that's the state of South Carolina statistic. So why do I think that those things are important for us to think about the numbers? The probability of you having a child in your classroom with challenging behavior because of one of those issues is pretty high, isn't it? Is the takeaway I want you to have from that. That it's in every classroom, in every room across this city, okay? Are kids that cannot self-regulate in the presence of the challenges presented in front of them. And the things that I just listed. Can you see constipation? Nope. Yeah, exactly. We're gonna look to clean that lens, right? So everybody can see it, because sometimes it's not the first thing we think of. Can we see a kid with sensory issues? Sometimes and sometimes not, right? Sometimes you just think it's willful, right? And instead, I want us to look at it through a lens of what in their central nervous system has gone awry that's making it harder for them to organize themselves and do the things that are expected, okay? As well as, I don't think that we can absolutely, compared to a disability like Down syndrome, you can't see autism. You can't see sensory processing issues. Compared to a child that maybe has to be in a wheelchair. You can see their disability, and people give them empathy. People raise them up. Kids with sensory issues walk around with people just assuming that they should do better. And I have a big, fat, burning desire for people to see it differently, okay? And I think 100% right here, this beautiful group of people, you guys have the power within you to make a huge impact in that child's life, okay? But just like in healthcare, one of the biggest phrases in healthcare is do no harm, right? Same thing in education. So if you are unsure of what's going on with the little one, sometimes we don't want to necessarily go to old school behaviorist ways, because that, for that young person, could be harm, okay? And so we have to start to also think about that from a bigger lens. Anybody have questions on it?
I have a question. Yeah. With ADHD, the autism can be misdiagnosed for ADHD at all?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and ADHD probably should be on that screen of the statistic, in that it's also not seen, right? We don't know, they don't walk around with, the meters of what their dopamine and serotonin's doing, right? To know how ADHD is impacting their ability to regulate, for sure. And, as far as diagnostics, kids are misdiagnosed every day, all the time. But what we can do, since none of us here, not one of us, not me, not you guys, none of us diagnose, okay? What we do is we meet kids where they are. And our job is to meet them there and have some things in our toolbox to help lift them up, okay? Or lift them as far as we can and get them into the hands of someone that then has done more education in those areas that can come and support you more, okay? All right, so pyramid of learning. So probably in your Montessori education, you saw something similar? Yes? Maybe? Okay. So today, where we're really gonna focus is down here in our central nervous system, and then up one level here to our systems of our sensory system. So olfactory, smell, vision, auditory, taste, touch, vestibular or movement, proprioception, knowing where our body is in space, okay? We're really gonna focus here, okay? Because most likely your struggling, challenging behavior kids are having a bottom-up issue, okay? This part of their pyramid is not working the way it needs to, and we're trying to give them this. Or we're trying to give them this. Or we're trying to get them to participate independently in activities of daily living or things like that. And they're down here saying, dude, my pot is leaky. My central nervous system is offline, okay? So our first few minutes, we're gonna really talk about that offline central nervous system. Oh, thank you. So, that is so much better. So observing a happy nervous system. Oh, look how happy that brain is over there. So happy. So when you look at a child and you see a happy nervous system, what are some things that you can expect to see? So the first thing we always want to try to think about is, how's their breath? Okay? Are they breathing rhythmically? Or you guys have been next to maybe one of your students that breathes differently than you expected maybe. Maybe they are a full-on mouth breather, and you can sit next to them and hear them, okay? Maybe they hold their breath. Maybe they breathe faster. But a happy nervous system is what I see all of you guys right now, which is pretty impressive considering right now everybody has a little anxiety because all of our systems from the summer are changing, aren't they? And that makes the whole world anxious. So drive slowly. But breathing rhythmically, okay? Or put yourself in the shoes a minute of when your breath goes away. What's something that takes your breath away? Say what?
Empath?
Impact, yeah. So being struck, right?
Shock.
Absolutely. If you're startled, right? If something runs up on you and you're takes your breath away, right? And that is your autonomic nervous system kicking into gear, okay? So kids that have a happy nervous system, their eyes are moving, okay? So they're not here. They're looking around the room. They're not looking like this. Okay, their eyes are moving separate from the rest of their body. They're moving with ease, okay? So they're not up, down, rolling around. They are able to walk with, maybe their arms swinging as we do as humans, right? We walk down the hall with arms swinging, so they might be here. Our T-Rex kids, right? They might be here. Okay, those unhappy nervous systems. They're socializing. Okay, they haven't isolated themselves from the rest of the group. They aren't growling at friends. They are engaged. Okay, they're playful. They're trying new things and dipping their toe into new challenge without it being too scary. They have a range of emotions. Okay, so they can be happy, they can be sad, they can be excited, they can be bored, they can be hungry, they can be thirsty. Okay, and they can identify those emotions. Okay, for the most part. Their voice has prosody. So hopefully right now I'm presenting to you with some prosody to bring your interest in, right? My voice is going up and down to add meaning to my words. I am not talking to you like this. I do not want to do that, Miss Becky. Okay? I have prosody in my voice. A kid that's unhappy nervous system, you might hear that. I'm able to make decisions that comply within the classroom framework. Okay, so that means that I might be pushing the boundaries of the rules, okay? But I know how far I can push, and I know how to slide back in, and I know how to stretch the boundaries of the classroom. I know what jobs I can do, what jobs I can't do. I know how to ask for help. And I have a happy nervous system, okay? So how many of our kids in our classroom look like this? A lot of them, right? A lot of them, maybe not day one, because they're all nervous day one, right? But as they establish a routine, and where you think about your kids that are in the third year of their cycle, lots of them now have this confidence and this happy nervous system that they are walking through the room with that ease. Those that have a less happy bottom of their pyramid might be in what we refer to as a fight-flight response. Okay? Fight-flight is when our autonomic nervous system tips over. Okay? It might be because of lots of reasons. Some of them are the statistics on that first page. It might be because our system has stopped going potty. We are not sleeping more than 5 hours a night. We're up and down all night long, in and out of mom and dad's bed, back into our bed, sleeping on the couch, sleeping with televisions on, that type of thing. Our system is not feeling well. Or we might have a biological something going on that is unrecognized, or brain development that is unseen, that is different. So when we're in fight-flight, our pupils may change the way that they're reacting to light and to things in the environment. We all of a sudden are flooded with cortisol, which is our stress hormone, which makes us less adaptable and less able to work within a system. We might have a really dry mouth or an extra saliva in our mouth. We might have our heart pounding away, okay? We might be now all of a sudden hard to catch our breath, okay? Think about that kid that's really having a tough day and what their breath looks like, okay? We might now all of a sudden have told our gastrointestinal system to come to a halt. So now we're adding into these constipation issues, adding into a system that now is in pain, okay? And then, or we may even start to have more accidents, bowel, bladder accidents, things like that. We may also be going to stimulate genitalia because that's calming, okay? So, which is something I get called into classrooms quite a bit about. So when we think about kids who are in this dysregulated state, we want to think about input over time. So in this slide, we think about when we're down here in the green, we have freedom, we can eat, drink, we can have fun, and we can have friends. We are all systems go, okay? Our neurological system is online, okay? And this is where we can do a lot of learning, we can do a lot of adaptability, we can slow down, speed up on command. And then over time, all kids are going to go in and out of these two places, okay? So they're gonna come up as new challenges and new opportunity presents to them, and they're gonna feel the stress of that input. And that's gonna bring them into bringing other parts of their sympathetic nervous system online that might bring them more into so they might be looking to find a friend, find a teacher, bring in people closer to them, look for more comfort, feeling the need to be clingy, proximity becomes big in finding, fawning, that there are behaviors to diffuse conflict, likelihood of harm, pain, or rejection is high for them. So all of a sudden they're feeling like, oh, none of my friends like me. I'm not gonna do this, I'm gonna go over here. Okay, fawning, flee, now I'm gonna run away. I can't deal, I am vacating the premises, okay? And then there's fight, okay? That your sweet little person that was right next to you a minute ago that was working so nicely, now all of a sudden throwing elbows, okay? Or going to bite their foot, okay? Because all of a sudden, the tigers are chasing their nervous system and they have moved up the ladder of safety, okay? They're moving into protection, okay? And then if they stay in that state long enough and more things inhibit their system, then they go all the way up here to where the brake system comes on and they go into complete shutdown, okay? And this is where then there's just no moving them one way or another, complete shutdown. Has anybody worked with kids here? Okay, yep, every year, right? So they get to that place and then I don't care how many sticker charts you use, I don't care how many parent meetings you have. We have to find a way to reach their nervous system if we're gonna bring them back online, okay? So complicated slide, don't expect you to memorize it. This I can spend a 4-day seminar in, okay? But I wanted you just to be aware of it. Is it helpful or not?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Very.
Okay. I agonized over this one. So this is another really, really wonderful little takeaway that I took from a course with Dan Siegel. Dan Siegel is a psychologist who is amazing. So if you ever want inspiration at the end of the day and you are on YouTube, Google Dan Siegel and watch some of his little like 2 and 3 minute webinars because they're very, very, very good. He wrote The Whole Brain Child, another great book and one that I rely on a lot. So he talks a lot about the concept of flipping our lid, okay? Flipping our lid is when we go from that green all the way up through that yellow to when we are almost getting to red, okay? So we were in green, we were peaceful and zen and happy, and the stressors of life took us up and our system didn't respond properly, and now we're chasing tigers, and now that tiger is about to bite us, and our system says so, okay? So he uses a hand model of our brain. So everybody put your hand up like this, okay? So if you see right here, this is our survival brain right here. This is our brain stem. This is the first primitive brain that develops in humans, okay? Our brain stem, primitive brain. Right here is our emotional brain. It's right in the center of our brain, our emotional brain. This is a very important part of our brain called the amygdala. Okay, and it's sort of the gatekeeper and the filter of our emotions. Okay, and it comes right over here, and it is the smoke detector is what he calls it, or the amygdala. This is like, uh-oh, Roger, we've got a problem. Okay, and it comes right here. Then over the top of all of that is our cortex. This is our thinking brain. okay? This is where decisions can be made. This is where we can make conscious efforts and understand rules and get along with friends and all of that. So this is a brain that's online and attached, okay? So when we get to that place, then let's say we're in yellow, we start to flip our lid, okay? So see how decision making has gone, it's starting to detach here. So at this point, we could come in and do simple interventions to help reconnect before we could ever, like, this is the only place that you can explain a rule or ask them to do an apology or to make amends with a friend or to take on a new challenge or a demand, okay? When they are here, you are barking up a tree that is not attached. That limb will fall off, okay? And then there's the full-on flip your lid, okay? No longer attached. Now we're offline, and this is that survival brain, okay? And so survival brain is the sensation of autonomic functions, fight, flight, freeze, submit, collapse. The emotional brain is the expression and regulations of feelings, emotions, relationship, attachment. Amygdala is our smoke alarm. Our thinking brain is the cortex. And then offline, that's the survival brain and not able to access our thinking brain, okay? So the reason I want you to think about that, because your actions are different based on where that brain is. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, so I'll give you a quick story of today. Alec will love that part of my story. So, Alec is on the edge of going into middle school, has gone to meet the teacher, you know, and so he's already sort of in that state of arousal, right? There's a lot coming up, right? So his full-time working parents left him alone this morning because he's a Montessori kid, he can handle it, he's good, right? But we're having a washer delivered. Washer people come and say, you're too young, we're not leaving the washer with you. And his dad is telling him things on one phone, and the Lowe's people are telling him things on the other line, and he started to come undone. Okay? So mom had to come on board, and I had to use strategies of, you know, we did some strategies that we're going to talk here with him to help him find his breath again, to help him bring that brain back down so that he could just give the message to the Lowe's people, I think we're going to reschedule. Okay? Because that was the most practical solution, right? Now Sean might still be here, I don't know. But that was just an example of everyday little things that happen, right? Where our brain comes a little bit undone and we come back. So one thing I want you guys to do is I want you to pay attention to your brain, okay? You have to understand your brain to help little brains, okay? So recognize, oh, uh-oh, I probably shouldn't have that important conversation with my important person in my life right now. I better take a walk outside. Okay? Anything coming out of my mouth right now is out of survival. Right here, great time for a family meal, right? Okay? So just keep that in mind. Our regulation is super important. So if you look at this, I love this slide, and this is from, some of you guys maybe have met Heather Spann, because she's been here working with kids before as well. She's an amazing OT. And Amy Lewis has started this incredible course that I highly recommend called Powerfully You. And this is a slide from their Powerfully You. And you can see here, this is disconnected brain offline signs. And this is safety, brain online and what you might see. So when we're tipped towards safety, we're playing, we're exuberant, we're fun and creative and flexible. We're leaning into opportunities in the classroom, on the playground, with friends, with teachers. We have fluid movement, we're curious, we're engaged, prosodic voice. We're moving towards, we're not backing away, okay? We're compassionate, we're adaptable, we're able to get a rhythm of our breath, we're relaxed, and this is also where we can relax and digest, okay? So those kids that you have in your room that if you're still in a napping room that can't ever settle down, you want to think about, are they tipped towards safety or are they tipped towards protection? And because then when we're tipped towards, so if we take this teeter-totter and we tip it this way, then that's when we're gonna see these fighting back and aggression, the running away, feeling scared, tension patterns, voices raising, blaming, lying, holding our breath or shallow breathing, trying to manipulate others, shy, flushing of our skin, being overly perfectionist, controlling, bossy, all or nothing statements. You never, your voice might become very flat. You're turning into a possum. You're moving away, you're yawning, you're overly compliant or checked out, shut down, increased pain tolerance, and disassociation. Okay? So I find this like super helpful in giving me words to think about when I'm observing a kid or when I'm observing myself. Okay? So as someone that works with kids that are a lot of times offline all day, every day, on the hour, I have to be very aware that I'm not enmeshed. Okay? What's enmeshed mean?
That you're also not going into the protection zone.
Yeah. So we have this funny thing in our brain that's called a mirror neuron that's really easy to mirror the energy you're with. Right? You guys know this well, because you know the day that your classroom's here and you're there. And the day that your classroom's sleepy and you're kind of there too. Okay? And the day that your classroom's humming along and you leave thinking, I have the best job in the whole world. Okay? You're gonna have a lot of those days. Okay? So we enmesh in other people's energy and we have to be aware of that so that we can use strategies when we're tipped into protection to bring us back into a place where we're connected. Okay? Helpful? You good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so providing an atmosphere of felt safety disarms the primitive brain and reduces fear. It's the critical first step towards helping your child grow and heal. So we're spending a lot of time on the bottom of the pyramid because every time I step into a classroom to try to help, we're doing top down. We're trying to fix it through reasoning and rationalization, and I want to try to empower you to think bottom up, okay? Because bottom up is long term. This lasts for a day, and then you're like, well, I did what they said and it didn't work, okay? Bottom up. So just think about that the sense of felt safety. Somebody give me an example of a time in this last week that you had a sense of felt safety. What was happening in your world? Perfect.
My cat was purring.
Love it. And hopefully near you?
Yes, like on me.
Yeah. Awesome. And so you had that tactile, you had the sound, you had all of those things that gave you a sense of, this is home, right? Yeah. What's another one?
It's like being with two really close friends in a familiar place and like just the three of us.
Social connection is amazing for a feeling of felt safety.
A clean house for 30 minutes.
Amen. Amen. Alec went to summer camp 2 weeks ago, and the day before I made him clean the whole house with me, and I was like, let's see what it looks like when you get back. It looked pretty good.
Yeah, mine's a
So
little
yeah,
expensive.
that clean house feeling is one of order and contentment, right? We know that sometimes less is more in helping our nervous system stay okay. Who else has one where you felt really safe and good. Well, I know for me, you know, when my husband gives me a nice long hug at the end of a long day, that's a feeling of felt safety. Definitely being with coworkers who share likeness in thought and theory and mind, and we can learn together. That's a feeling of felt safety. So now think about anybody that has kids or has a kid in mind. When do you see your kids feel safe?
When they're near me.
Proximity, huge.
And then
Pick them up.
Yep, for sure,
Sometimes when we greet them, they come inside the door.
absolutely. Because there you are, and you're consistent, and there you are, and they love you. What are some things that might tip your sense of felt safety?
Threatened.
Say again?
Feel threatened.
Feel
in some
threatened.
type
For
of
sure.
way.
And noise.
Set of noise, yeah. So, say yours one more time for me.
Feeling threatened.
Threatened, and a lot of times, where does the sound of threat come from?
An angry voice.
Angry voice, right? Tone. So our tone of voice that we use with our kids, do you think it's really important to be aware of?
Yeah.
So what if you checked your phone and got an annoying text from Lowe's about your washer delivery, and you're with a little person,
Choose your words wisely.
and you have to get really good about taking those things in your life, and they have to have a secret compartment. And they have to be tucked into that secret compartment until it's safe for you to deal with it. It's good for you too. So, you know, turning off notifications on your phone during a school day, or putting your phone far, far away till you know when you check it, you have the space and time to deal, is very important. So when I worked for the hospital for 15 years, managing a giant team and lots of hospital administrators, and that phone sometimes used to sit on my desk where I would be with a client, and the ding of "you need to make sure all of your supplies are 6 feet off the ground" would come through it. Dumb, didn't care, but the sense of urgency would strike me, and it would impact this person. So that phone went into the top drawer, and I said, "They can fire me," and they did. They did. Life is good. But you get what I'm saying, right? That our phones and some of the extraneous things that come into our teaching day are important to manage, because it might impact a sense of your felt safety or theirs. So helping kids reset and bring their brains back online starts with who? Yep. Because we have mirror neurons that we could enmesh very quickly in a kid being disrespectful. So close your eyes. A kid just walked up, stomped on your foot, and told you that you are dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Put yourself there. Somebody describe what might happen inside of you. Scream it out.
Anger will spike.
Huh?
Your anger like spikes.
Yeah. Oh, no, you didn't. Right?
At first, it was funny to me, because it's
Yeah.
like, you know, what are you doing? But then, you know, when the person says that, it's like, oh, like, no, that's not okay.
Yeah. Okay, so the chances, you can open your eyes again. So chances right now, where, somebody hold up your hand and show me where that child's brain was, most likely. It's either here or here, right? Right?
Yeah.
So can they have you right now lecture them on the rules of not stomping on your foot?
No.
Will it do any good for anyone?
No.
Okay? Does anybody care that you told them the rule again?
No.
Did it make you a better teacher?
No.
Okay. So that's not the time. It's back when they're happy and playful and back online that you sit down and you're coloring a picture with them and say, "Hey, earlier today we had a problem. You kind of stomped on my toe. You think we could talk about it for a minute?" Now their brain is here. Their cortex is in touch with their amygdala, and now they can integrate that into their system, okay? But also sometimes when that happened, ouch, woo, that might happen to you too, okay? That all of a sudden you're angry and you can't help it. Reflexive. It hurt, right? You were threatened. Your primitive brain said, protect yourself, okay? So make sure that you think about some of the strategies we have. So you're gonna think about, before you approach a child that is in a place here, I want you to ask yourself some questions. Are you breathing, okay? Or are you clenched? No, you didn't just do that again, okay? You have long days with the same children for many days on end, okay? Are you breathing? Is your heart rate okay? Or is it, it's okay if it is, but just don't approach them yet, okay? Is your temperature okay? Or are your ears warm, your cheeks flushed? Is your tummy growling and tightened up, okay? Do you feel like running? Okay, that sense of urge of fight, flight, is that in you, okay? And then have you observed that child with love? Okay, meaning that you've looked, you've observed, you've validated what you've seen, and you're gonna approach it with empathy. L-O-V. Okay? Have you made no assumptions as to why they just did what they did? Has anybody read the book, The Four Agreements? Another great book. So one of the tenets in the Four Agreements is make no assumptions. Assumptions are dangerous. Okay? So we want to make sure that we don't assume a child is doing something out of a pattern maybe we saw with another kid, or assuming that they're doing it for attention, assuming they're doing it out of orneriness, assuming, okay? Because we really want to slow down and we want to look, because we have to start to be the detective. Okay, does that make sense? The other suggestion I love is to connect yourself to a mantra, okay? So you went sky high, maybe you're not, maybe everything's in check up here, and now before you approach them, you know, a lot of times, you know, I'll attach myself to is that I have all the love you need. And I'll say that over and over and over in my brain. And it's amazing how much the kids will feel that, okay? Or Ross Greene wrote The Explosive Child, and his big saying is kids do well when they can. Okay, there's so many things that go into that, right? Are we pooping? Are we sleeping? Are we eating? Have we had enough hugs? Have we had enough in time and out time? I mean, there's so many things, right? But kids do well when they can, okay? So it wasn't personal. This child needs me. Sometimes the kids that need you the most show it in the most loving ways, right? Or I have the love this child needs. So I use that one a ton. I have all the love that they need, and I'm gonna go and share it. So, like I was sort of emulating earlier of what I did with Alec, and that we do a lot in my household and with my clients, is something called roller coaster breathing. So I almost envisioned that this could even be a work on the shelf, okay, that even the kids could trace their own hands and color them, and then they could put their hand down on that laminated page and they could trace their hands, and what you do, everybody put your hand up, and we're gonna connect with our breath. Okay, so we're gonna breathe in through our nose and out through pursed lips. Okay? There's no words that have to be said. You don't have to say pause for 3, out for 4. You know, it's just simple. And as our fingers get longer, our breaths get deeper. Okay, so roller coasting breath is something that talks to your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve is what sends you offline. Okay? So just an idea of hopefully one of those things that you can take with you. So the other reminders for ourselves is make sure that we connect before we correct. Okay? So you're not telling somebody over here what they've done wrong while you're giving a lesson over here. You have not connected with that person for that to be of benefit to anyone except for the self-esteem of this one. Okay? The rules of our primitive brain, you don't know if they're here if you're doing it that way, if you haven't gone over and figured out a way to connect. Okay? And we're going to talk about ideas for connection here in just a second. We're going to watch the balance of our language. Who has verbal bleh? How many of you talk too much? I love your honesty. Yes. So, we can a lot of times try to regulate ourselves through words. So make sure your words are for the children, not for yourself. Okay? Slow down and match the child where they are. If they are in a state where they're not talking to you, then you're sitting and swaying with them until you find connection. Okay? Or you're giving them space and maybe we'll talk about some more connection things here, but you're just going to be aware of your language balance. Okay? What does this mean?
Come here.
What does this mean?
Yeah.
What does this mean?
Happy.
Smile.
I'm happy, right? I'm happy. I'm a welcoming, right? What does this mean?
Somebody's in trouble.
Big trouble.
Big trouble.
Okay? Know your body language. Okay? Some of us wear it big. Some of us talk a big story. Some of us wear it really big. Okay? That little person is not going to connect with you if you're here. Because now you're dominant. Okay? So you have to reconnect. And you have to approach at their level. With their level of words. If they're talking a lot, you can join them. And then slowly bring them back down by slowing your language down. Okay? A kid way up here and you approach way down here, you might not get to them. Sometimes you got to jump on the trampoline with them. Okay? And then together you come down. Okay? And then always have, and I'll flip this to Jeannie too to share with you all. I have this beautiful list of emotionally nutritious praise that is very, very Montessori and very, very much something that you also want to pay attention to. Are you connecting with kids only when they do the wrong thing? In classroom management, it can be really, really tough balance, okay? Because you're spread too thin, and you sometimes don't notice that person until they're acting up. What will that get you?
Nowhere.
Well, nowhere. And what's that telling that kid?
To act up more to get.
To act up.
Act up and I'll connect, right?
All the other kids act up.
Huh?
I'm telling all the other kids. act up
Absolutely,
too.
absolutely. They're like, look how we get the teacher to sit next to us. Right? We throw work. Okay, so make sure the second, especially if when you recognize a personality type in your classroom, you think that they may be wired to one that is gonna need you more, that they're screaming connection the second you meet them, that you on day one proactively connect. Okay? Make note of the environment. So you had a kid that flipped their lid. Now you're making mental notes. You're being a good sensory detective. How noisy was my room? How many people were moving from point A to point B? Is there a lot of movement around them? Do I have big diffusers going and lots of smells? Did I wear a different perfume today? Did Johnny's mom hug him extra long before he came in, and does he smell like her perfume? Is there, so are there a lot of smells? Was there a lot of change in the morning routine? Maybe it was picture day and everything got changed. Maybe it's raining and the routine was changed. Maybe it was a holiday and things are different. Was the room really hot, really cold? Was something unexpectedly startling? with somebody else in the other side of the room throwing a tantrum, and then somebody else tipped over too. Was their door slammed? Did a work fall off the shelf? What are some things that could have been all of a sudden started? And doesn't mean you're doing anything about it right now, but you are gonna have a journal if you're really wanting to own some of this, and you're gonna write it down right then. My friend Becky had a rough morning, and here were some sensory things going on in the room. 2 days passed, my friend Becky had another rough day, here were some things going on in the room. When you have 5 or 6 days of Becky had a bad day, compare those notes, baby, okay? Figure me out, okay? Because I'm a little person, I don't know, okay? I can't put my thumb on the fact that that's what it was, okay? And then if the room shows you no clues, that's then we'll talk about talking to parents. So I also love this little visual, and I can send you a copy of this as well that you could laminate so the kid's very shut down. One word from you is only going to lead to more fight, flight, or flee. So sometimes we can put a communication mat out in front of them to help them with their basic needs. Once again, the bottom of that pyramid, am I thirsty? Am I hungry? Do I have to go potty? Am I not feeling well? Am I really, really hot? Am I really, really cold? You can see how it is. This gives them another means in which to communicate. You can use it with your spouses too. Okay, so that's all about us. Anybody else have other good words of wisdom for your coworkers? What are some things that over your years of teaching that's helped you?
Question. Did you call them mirror neurons? The mirror neurons that like enable that enmeshed feeling, does that mean we have like equal opportunity to draw the child into our calm, or when they're here, are those not activated?
Yeah, absolutely. They are there all the time. That's why when your mantra is true and real, they'll feel it. It used to kind of be eerie to me. I'm not kidding you, but I could sit next to a kid thinking that mantra in my head, I am all the love you need. Breath return. For a kid that had been told no 7,000 times and that they were doing it wrong. Okay? Painful. Painful. Did anybody have a bad school experience? Yeah. Stands pretty strong, doesn't it? And we have to work hard to sometimes override those feelings, right? And that's why you guys are the perfect group of people to reach these kids. You have everything you need. Everything gives me chills from the bottom of my toes to the top of my head that you can make the biggest impact with these kids with simple things. And the beautiful part of it is when you're doing these things, what happens to your job satisfaction?
And it goes up.
It's gonna go way up here. What happens if you keep relying on failed sticker charts? You drink and say you're gonna quit everything.
The same thing.
I've never been there. But that's what happens, is that all of a sudden, at the end, I mean, I always tell this story too, that I remember our lunchroom when I had a big team of therapists that worked with me. And people would come, you know, they'd come in, oh my God, these children, they're crazy, they're train wrecks. I hated that word. And it became a rule in the lunchroom, they could never say that again. But they would be so here. And this was after they'd already walked in that morning spewing off about how everything had gone wrong the night before and how they hadn't slept and they hadn't done this. And they were here and their mirror neuron had rolled over onto every one of their caseload. And I would usually, very calmly, when their brain was back on mine, and say, I think it might have been you. And not in any sort of shame, blame way. It's because, and you guys have to help each other stay accountable. Hey, I hope that hey, let's go for a walk after work. Let's take care of ourselves, okay? Because it's like that oxygen mask crazy scenario. We can't be good for them unless we're taking care of ourselves first. And we'll talk. So,
Question?
yes, please.
New to Montessori, this is all fascinating.
Welcome,
to
yay.
me. But I have a question about the immediate response that would be good or bad.
Okay.
all of this, you know, it's not a good time to talk about it.
Yeah.
But what's a good immediate response to that kind of behavior?
So every situation is gonna be this much different. Okay? What I would suggest in that moment is make sure that you slowly and carefully put that child someplace safe and then check yourself. Okay?
Because other children see it possibly.
Yeah, but we're not gonna worry about that. That is a story we tell ourselves, that I know there may be some belief in everyone's gonna imitate now and come stomp on my foot. Okay, has anybody ever had kids line up and stomp on your foot?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, all of them. Because one did.
Maybe, not maybe that scenario, but yeah.
So unless it's out of silliness, most of the time it's not detached foot stomping, right? Okay? That most likely is not going to happen, okay? When they come back online, then we could talk to them and even have them work on a way to make sure the class knew that I made a choice that wasn't right, okay?
But do you physically move them?
Or move me. Or move me. It depends, like I said, the scenarios like this.
Depends on
So,
the child.
exactly, who's near you, what materials are near you, what other damage could that child do to others, right? To know the immediacy of how quickly you need to help get that child to a different space, okay? They may be able to stay right where they were, okay? Sometimes I might sit down right next to them,
Right.
okay? But I might not say a word. I might sit down right next to them. I'm not gonna yank them down. I'm not going to do anything that's gonna add threat, right? Because what's threat gonna do? Make it worse, okay? Because now we're really running. And now we're really fighting, okay? Because now the threat's real, the tiger's mouth is on me. I'm going to bite, okay? I might sit down next to them so that they know I'm not going to abandon them. Your nervous system needs me right now, doesn't it? And I might even say a language like that. Oh, I can tell you really need me right now. Okay? Let's sit here a minute together. I might start with a rhythm with them. Rhythm, I'm gonna breathe intentionally. I'm going to talk very little, most of the time. But don't take that as everybody. Okay, that's why this lecture was hard to write. Okay, does that help a little bit?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about regulating ourselves, and that's super, super duper, uber duper important. So if you only leave here today with that tool in your toolbox, I love you for it, okay, and hope it helps. These activities are ones that I want you to consider doing proactively. Proactively meaning not because they're showing behaviors that are saying I need to go reach out to them, but because they showed in my journal as a kid that needed something more than what they had, okay? That in my experiences with this child, that they're showing a trend that says they have they're on that verge, okay? For these kids, okay? These things that I'm about to talk about are not done when they're here, okay? And I want you to consider the time you spend helping a dysregulated child. And I want you to flip that time to the proactive time capsule, okay? Teachers are cursed with the inability to have enough time for everything. And I applaud you. Hard. I have the glory of working with kids one-on-one, okay? So time is tough, right? One of the toughest things is to be able to spread yourself around that room with enough love for everybody and enough time to give. But I just want you to put your brain there and think about a kid last year that gave you a run for your money. And how much time did you spend undoing what they did? Somebody raise their hand and tell me how much time you think you spent a day.
30+ minutes.
Okay.
At like outside of school hours.
Yep. So lots of time spent helping someone when they were flipped or here, right? So I'm wanting proactive time in with these kids here that is the equivalent time that's gonna lead to joy rather than shame and blame. Okay? And I think that these things really, really help in a very, very simplistic way. Okay? So children learn how to regulate their emotions through co-regulation. The better we can soothe them when they are agitated or support them when they are low, the better they absorb how to do this for themselves. Okay? You know, it's like the apple never falls from the tree, right? That if we are an angry parent, our child learns to be angry. If we are calm, cool, and collected, our child learns to be calm, cool, and collected. Okay? So co-regulation is a great big word for a continuous unfolding of individual actions that is susceptible to being continuously modified by the changing actions of a partner. It's the dance, okay? It's being able to work back and forth with a partner where they're throwing curveballs, you're throwing curveballs, but you can still work together. Okay, for kids, little curveballs are, he chose red and I wanted red. Okay? You sat in my chair and I wanted to sit in that chair. Okay? We learn flexibility through co-regulation. We learn self-regulation through co-regulation. Because when that little baby comes out of our womb, it learns everything through us. It learns to regulate its breath. It learns to eat. It learns to sleep. It learns all of these things through the rhythm of our world, okay? And then they learn to co-regulate through experience co-regulating with us, okay? What's one thing, 3 things, somebody name something right now that's disrupting co-regulation in our children.
Electronics.
Amen. Amen. Yes, screen time is my soapbox. I hate screen time with a passion, okay? I hate every portable device ever invented for children under the age of 18. I think it's disrupting their complete and utter neurochemistry. Okay? And do you have to co-regulate with a human when you're on a machine?
No. You feel it was a machine.
Right. So unless we're raising cyborgs, I'm not sure it is doing that. So any service in helping them to become better classmates, friends, peers, workers, parents, grown-ups, any of it. Okay? And what happens when kids are asked to come off a device?
Oh, it's
Right.
great distraction.
Why?
Because they're getting, serotonin from.
Yeah.
these
So they're
things.
getting all the wrong serotonin. They got their digital crack. They have not had to co-regulate. And now you have pulled them out into co-regulation and they no longer know how. So, kids that come to Sundrops, a lot of them are starting school at a very young age, right? Because they have working parents, okay? I dropped my child off here every day into the loving arms of Kim Evans for years. And went to work and had to come back in a panic to pick him up because I had to work. Because I couldn't pay my mortgage without it, okay? Painful for the parent and for the kid, okay? Because it's not really natural, right? So their replacement for co-regulation was luckily Kim co-regulated with Alec all morning, all day long, okay? And that was something that set him up for great success when he came home to me in the afternoon, okay? However, if we're doing a lot of things where we want lots of kids being overly independent, which is one of the things in Montessori I see, that we want them to be really, really independent. And then when we have this struggling kid, we sometimes don't realize that we need to step it back to making sure they have more co-regulation. Does that make sense? Okay. So instead of applauding their independence, applaud when they work back and forth with you in the dance. Okay? Because that's where they're gonna raise their game of self-regulation through, co-regulation. Okay? So here are some ways you can create co-regulation. So, let's say that Becky shows up at school and she's edgy. You feel it in her from day one. She's a little resistant to leaving the car. She comes into the classroom in a defensive pose. Okay? So one way that I might start a simple co-regulation is that we might just carry a work from the shelf to the mat together, literally. I got this side. You got that side? And you're starting and stopping as you go across the room. And when she stops with you, you're smiling and nodding. Then you're setting it down. So then you can continue the co-regulation where you're going to use a different pattern. So anytime that you do something simultaneously with a kid, you're co-regulating. Okay, as long as you're present with them. Okay. Setting up a work using a pattern called handing and receiving. I'm the hander, you're the receiver. Okay, so let's do the cylinders. I'm going to hand you the cylinder, you're going to accept it and put it on the work pad. I'm going to hand it. Could they do it independently? Probably. But I want them to connect with me in co-regulating because they're challenging. They need a fill-up. Does every kid in the room need this? No. Probably not. That challenging kid might need that, even though they can do it independently, but they're dying to connect with you. So instead, they're throwing the cylinders across the room if you're not doing this, because they're going to get you one way or another. Does that make sense? So hand and receive, you're going to the right, you're going to the left, you're handing one up high, you're handing one down low. They're giggling because you're changing it arbitrarily, okay? No sense why you're moving it there, okay? And you're spending, this is taking you maybe 3-4 minutes, but we already established that we're managing dysregulated behavior, 30-40 minutes of shame and blame. Now we're spending a joyous 3 or 4 intermittently throughout the morning work cycle, okay? Turn taking. So maybe they've chosen a work and they're sitting at the work and they are using it inappropriately. They are doing nothing with it. Somebody give me another one you see frequently. They've chosen a work and there they do.
They just stare at it.
Stare at it.
Or they just watch others
They're
who
just,
are working.
they're kind of staring off. Yep, okay. Anybody have any others?
They walk away from it.
They get it out and now they're a wandering little beast, right?
They use it incorrectly.
Yeah. So you come over with a smile, not to say, you need to get busy. We need to get a work done. Okay? You join in, connect before you correct. You're connecting. Hey, I want a turn. Okay? You're taking a turn very deliberately. Okay? And then you wait. Have them take, oh yeah. And you do this until they're churning. You can feel the churn, right? You guys feel it when a kid's taken off?
Mm-hmm.
When they've launched? And then you fade out. Okay? Another way that you are filling a kid up. Okay? Does every kid need this? Okay, but there's going to be a few that might. Forward chaining and backward chaining. So this is the kid that it's time to go out to recess and they're spinning circles on their rear end on the floor with their Crocs sitting next to them. Okay? And so you might walk over and start with just a hand and receive. Okay, you're not saying you better get your shoes on or you don't get to go out to recess. Okay, because now you're going to send them here. That's permission to throw a Croc at you. Okay?
Yeah.
So instead, you're joining to connect. You're connecting to help with compliance. Okay, connect. You're handing it to them. Maybe they hand it back to you. You hand it to them higher. They hand it back to you. You hand it to them lower. And then you emulate putting it on their toe. You hand it to them. They slide it on their toe. Big pats on the back. We did it. High five. Out the door they go. Forward chaining. Okay. Backward chaining might be you notice that a kid is not going to get through packing up their lunchbox. Okay. And you don't have we got to get going. Yeah. You know, that's not co-regulating. But if they are over there, oh, I love that you got the first 3. I'll get the last 3. Okay, or you start the zipper, I'll finish it. You start the button, I'll finish it. You start putting your jacket on, I'll finish it. Okay? That's backward chain. And that's another great way to create opportunities to co-regulate. Okay? And in that, a lot of times at the end of it, you want to celebrate the we. Not you did it, hey, we did it. We're always better together. Okay? Collectively, we are better together. All right. Questions on co-regulating? Does it sound stupid? Does it sound undoable? Okay. Trust me and try it. Your journal shows Becky's out of whack. Try greeting her at the door and saying, hey, come over here, I want to show you something. Or just do one of these. Less is more a lot of times language. Okay, so now, remember that pyramid? We have thoroughly covered autonomic nervous system. But Google it. Read all you can about polyvagal theory, about Dan Siegel, Dr. Porges. There's tons of great stuff. Anybody, and I also have cards that anybody that wants to email me and wants more resources, wants to dive deeper in, wants to have lunch and chat more about it, I'm yours. I love this stuff. It's fun, okay? But now we've moved up to that next level, okay? So now you have a kid that has what you feel is a pretty good neurological system that is, they're not in fight flight, okay? And now we're really thinking about their sensory systems, okay? So movement, vestibular, auditory, gustatory, proprioception, knowing where their body is in space. So we are gonna think about 4 different subtypes of kids. So there are the kids that are hyposensitive, meaning they have a high neurological threshold for input. And they are the kids that seek sensory information, and those that have low registration, meaning that they're the kid that could fall down, conk their head and jump up and be like, oh no, it's fine. Okay, low registration. The kid that has ketchup all over their face, no awareness, not sure it's there, you know, that never wipes their nose, doesn't bug them, low registration. Okay? So these guys are high neurological threshold, meaning that they can take in and take in and take in and take in. Hypersensitive or low neurological threshold kids are the ones that are gonna pick up the slimy thing, like, are gonna get the little bit of glue on their finger and be like, I gotta glue on my finger. That mom brings them in late every day because they threw a fit over the clothes that they put on. Okay? So these are the kids that their sensory system alerts, it lights up with less input. Okay, so their cup gets filled. They have a Dixie cup. These guys have a solo cup. Okay? Dixie, solo. Dixie, solo. Okay? So there's the sensation avoiding and the sensory sensitive. Okay? So let's look at it in a little bit more fun way. Let's think about poo. Okay? So Winnie Dunn is a really, really bright. Is that a raised foot or is that just a stretch?
A stretch, I'm sorry.
Okay. Everybody works different.
I'll raise my hand if I don't see it.
All right, so if we think about those same categories, okay? So in those same categories, we have our sensory seekers. They are our Tiggers. Okay, they're bouncy, 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 fun, 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 fun. They seek information to wake up the brain and to get ready for concentration and learning. They are solo cup of need, and they actively go after it. They have an active strategy to fill their cup, okay? They're the ones that you could give 1,000 errands to, and you should, okay? They are the ones that need to stand to work. They are the ones that need to pace to think. They are the ones that that are going to do 16 hours of yard work when they are married, and never sit down for a meal. I don't know if I'm married to one, but he's a mixed profile. But they're energetic, okay? Sometimes people think they're inattentive. Sometimes they are, okay? Sometimes the ticker truly is ADHD, okay? And that they don't have brain chemistry that's supporting much attention. So they look more of a seeker than maybe they actually are, okay? So then we have the bystander. So this is the one that has a high neurological threshold for input. They need a solo cup full of sensory information, but they're gonna wait for somebody else to present the sensory information, to wake up their brain for concentration and learning. They are our eaters, okay? They are, so then you have your sensors, who are your Pooh Bears. They sense most sensory information, and it overwhelms the organization of their brain during concentration and learning. And then there's the avoider. They're the active avoiders. They're like, I'm not wearing that pair of underwear ever. I will go to school with no undies on. Okay? Everybody in your class will have one little girl that will refuse to wear undies. Okay? And she is most likely a sensory avoider. Everything bothers her. She usually is in what I say almost like the backseat of her neurological brain, and she takes a lot to warm up to anything. And she is also actively pursuing her avoidance, whereas the passive distractor, the Pooh Bear, they just are avoiding everything. They're checked out. They're more spacey. They're less joint focus, and need more input, but can't get there. Okay. So actively trying, so these are the characteristics of a sensory seeker. They're actively trying to fill their needs with movement, touch, noise, and oral coats. They're wiggly. They take too many things off the shelf. They're constantly touching all of your work. They're constantly fidgeting. They're constantly touching you. They chew on everything. They smell everything. Their solo cup like just cannot be filled. And they want lots of input. Here are ideas. So, visually, you could try giving them things that are on brighter paper. You could try encouraging them to look at something that has a lot of color to it. You could talk about what you see and really have them describe things more. Auditory, you're gonna put them right next to the speaker. Okay, if you have music playing in your room, your tickers need to be right next to the music, okay? You're gonna suggest works to them that have more noise, that have more touch, feel, and input. You know, outdoor work, where they can sing and hum. So, you know, let them whistle while they work, if you can get them outdoors, okay? Or you can have a whole whistle while you work Tigger section of your room, okay? But just make sure that they're on the opposite side of your piglets, okay? So movement-wise, you could have that child work to pass things out. You could have them be your helper in resetting work on, you know, or if you have a child that's slow to put things away, have your Tigger help put things away. Give them lots of opportunities to go and come. You know, if you have a safe place to do like a tiny little like step stool where they could jump into something, so climbing and simple jumping, you know, make sure they have lots of outdoor times. If there is a place in your outdoor space that they can go barefoot, that can be really lovely. Lots and lots of input. You could have mom and dad send in mints that they're comfortable with for their mouth. You could try really, really intense smelling trays, like little containers that have like peppermint in them, or essential oil, or spices that are really bright. Yeah.
We had a boy that was here just a couple years ago, and it took me a while to figure him out. He was one of those puzzles. But his big thing, I made foam, like just out of shaving cream, but it was a lemon.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, you put lemon in it, anything with lemon, and it just calmed him down.
Yes.
Like, it was like I had just given him, like, he would have just done anything I wanted him to do as long as it had lemon smell.
Yep.
So you're figuring out what their trigger is or thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Or like this morning, I had a low registration kid, and as we were working, we were intermittently smelling our peppermint because I needed to wake his system. Okay, so low registration, big smells. For this guy, any smell. Okay, ones they like, ones that fill them up, lots of ways to get that, because you'd be surprised how much smell actually does fill us. Okay. And then body position, so you might even encourage this young person in your circle. I've always been curious, is in circles, we do so much in ring sitting or crisscross applesauce in our circles, of if for one portion of your circle, if you would challenge all of your kids to do this. Okay, feet are back, you should all fit still and not have hands on one another, and you still have a visual attention on the instructor. You can still sing. I won't right now. But you can still sing. You can still clap your hands. You could still listen to a lesson about, an ecology thing, or listen to a story this way. You're not going to stay here for more than probably 5 minutes because kids will fatigue. But as an OT, life changed when we went back to sleep. And kids don't spend much time on their tummies. And we're seeing this have a global effect on development. So especially in the primary rooms, if you would think about kids that are comfortable being on their tummies, encouraging that for a portion of your circle. And I think it might be really interesting to see what you saw. Another interesting position that you could try and circle would be this one, which is like a crouched tiger almost, or like a kitty. And this, I sometimes call this kitty because I think of my sweet kitty, who likes to sit like this and stare at me. And they could rock forwards and backwards as one of your little exercises. And this really works to integrate reflexes as well, but is a really, really nice position, okay? And it's more symmetrical than this one. Can be really hard for kids, okay? So if you have a kid that you're repositioning and repositioning and repositioning, don't be afraid to think bigger than ring sit, okay? Because there wasn't really any rule that said that this was best, okay?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm actually doing my elementary training now.
Yeah.
And I've worked in CASA 29 years. And, we always encourage the children to sit like that. But as I'm reading back through Marie Montessori's, through her lessons, she's saying that she basically adapted the mat, the work mat, for children because they like to lay down.
Yeah.
And I had a light bulb moment because we've all been encouraging the children to sit up like that, but it's not really natural for them.
Right. Well, and there are a lot of kids for a lot of reasons, which would be a whole nother 6 hours of the time, that could talk about, posture and the development of posture. And I see a lot of kids that are sitting crisscross applesauce in a circle that are physically not ready to.
We find that a lot, actually. Yeah. We talk about that a lot between CASA and CASA when we move the 2.5, 3-year-old up. They are not able to sit.
No.
And it's frustrating for us in CASA because that's what we have been sort of programmed to expect.
Yeah.
But like I'm saying, as I'm reading back through the next plane of development and learning more information, basically that's not really how it started.
No.
Children were not really even expected to sit in a group.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So, and with that too, make sure that you're monitoring how long your line time or your circle time is. It should be brief. Yeah. Especially for the youngest, okay? But think about, look, what position is that kid most comfortable in? Put it in your journal. Becky does not like to ring sit, okay? Becky likes to lay on her tummy, okay? That way you know and it's okay for other kids, and explain to them from the day one, then you're not being permissive to one and punitive to another. If you said, I want you to sit how you're comfortable from day one, now you're still the captain of the ship, okay? Because the rule wasn't crisscross applesauce, okay? Because when you think about the position to, I'm going to only go short on this though. Down on our tummy, we are developing our visual schemes. Think about the tactile innervation that you're giving that child. Their whole body is in touch with the ground. Tactile, vision, and vestibular. So that lifting of our head against gravity is the start of our vestibular system, which is key to kids regulating the amount of movement that they need in order to work without moving. That makes sense? Probably not, but hold on so much.
I wanted to get back to taste for a minute, or something.
Sure.
More, because we have a few t-shirt chewers,
Yeah.
namely boys. Their shirt is just always in their mouth and then soaked. So
Yep.
is it a matter of perhaps asking mom, and what do you suggest for that? If it's not
So
men's,
first I
it's-
want you to think about, are they a Tigger, are they an Eeyore, are they a Piglet, or, figure out where they fall.
usually a Tigger.
They're usually a
Yeah.
Tigger, okay. So they're seeking, and then seeking?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so a seeker, yes, you're gonna want to fill them with smell and more things to chew on.
Okay.
Texture.
Necklace.
Yeah, or even cut up a bunch of lemons and let them suck on lemons. Freeze lemons and let them try really cold ones and kids love it. So citrus that they can suck on, have them, sucking something thicker through a straw. So have mom and dad make a smoothie that they send in that they have to suck hard through a straw to get. Yeah, so, but then don't forget here too, because these guys go together, as well as our mouth is a down regulator, okay? So if we have overdone ourselves with movement, we chew on things to bring ourselves back down. It's a proprioceptive break. Our mouth has more proprioceptors than any other part of our body, thanks to our dental research. So much proprioception in our mouth. So it's why, everybody think about how you use your mouth to regulate. What are things you do?
I chew gum.
I'm a gum chewer too.
Yeah, I gotta chew gum.
I constantly have my Yeti filled with something that I'm sipping on, usually a warm liquid.
Clenching like your jaw, like people do that to like bounce out.
Absolutely. Or check yourself. Everybody check right now. Are you gritting or are you calm?
Gritting.
Okay. Or think about when you're really focused on doing something hard, like putting together a kid's toy. So you're really trying to engage your visual system on a tiny screw or mascara. Right? Can't put it on without doing it. It's impossible. Okay? Or watch globally your classroom and see what their mouths are doing. How many of them are able to breathe through their nose and their mouth? Tonsils, adenoids, inflammation in our highly processed food world. Tonsils are giant anymore and kids can't breathe through their nose. So they're breathing in and out of the same device. It's not how we were designed to be. So then they're almost even controlling their saliva with chewing because it helps them to suck, swallow, breathe. So I know that was a long answer, but for that kid, I want you to start with higher texture and smell and oral inputs. See if mom can send in a little bit more interesting spicy foods or things like that, and see if that also helps. Okay? All right. We are at 2:30. You want me to keep going? Who needs a break? Okay. So why don't we take or anyone that needs a break, take one, and I'm gonna keep going just a little bit. We only have like 5 more slides, so, but I don't want to.
The elementary might wanna see the avoiders. Did you
Yep.
already go over that?
No.
Sure.
They got a lot of avoiders.
Okay, so for sensory seekers, the other thing that I put in here, yeah,
this is a little bit hard to read.
I'll send you
Can
the
you send it
electronic
to us
ad.
and then we can read it?
Absolutely.
I'm
I would
old.
love it too.
We're old.
I can't read it.
This is the old
I'm getting this over. I can't see
the knee glass.
To correct their posture to speak about
Yeah,
pain.
but she's going over the avoiders.
Like trying to write like with their leg up on, you know, whatever, to correct it.
I'll take
But
notes.
if they're seeing input,
So-
how do I help them?
Yeah, so a fair band around the bottom of their chair that they can kick against can give them some full weight. So that would be really great. A cushion that has, there's a cushion that has vibration in it.
No,
Wiggle
Brandon,
seat.
well, luckily.
It isn't the wiggle seat like the junior, it's unstable.
Right.
Sometimes they just fall out of.
You could do that.
This is stable, but the wiggle seat.
And if they're doing that, like.
But for the most part, I said,
Writing and stuff, because basically I don't wanna.
I think we should
So
do
is that
really
not true
detailed.
then, like if I let them write that way, or all of a sudden, like if it's my stuff, how they write, if
And I
if
think
they
we
need
can
to be sitting
condense
right,
that
or can they kind of be
this
like,
side
I
to
have one
this
that like
side.
natural on
The things that are under
Like,
there,
is
I'm
that a
pretty
sensory thing, or do I
sure.
need to correct her so that she writes appropriately, or just let her do it? Like,
Bigger buckets, I'm pretty sure there's
strong
like 2 or 3 buckets.
right, if you're first, it's very strong.
Very strong.
Yeah.
And strong from a horse perspective.
I think so, yeah.
I actually remember it now that you
And
said
then,
that, that's,
so sometimes
that's
this
literally
is a
one of
sign
the
a
first
reflex
things in
called
our
a
manual.
TNR.
It's like, you can have mats
They're
so they can lay
uncomfortable being
down.
night bound.
Yeah,
I
she seems
literally
very.
remember that as you said
Yeah.
that.
So she would be one, that when, if I'm here later this year, show me and I'll give you a little exercise.
Okay.
Honestly,
But I'd wanna look at it
was
first.
Yeah.
like
But, I would offer her multiple ways to write.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're probably just correcting her, she's going right back.
Yeah, cause it's like all the 99 days, like, was like
Just didn't go.
Yeah, she just like, she'll do, and if I correct her, she'll like do it, like a different thing instead of that, like 100%.
So even letting her sit on her heels,
But I also,
if she'll sit at the
Anderson
table
says
this way.
all the time. is that-
On the chair like that?
That's okay.
all the
Or
time.
maybe, would it be okay to like put her on like a floor
And
table, or is that
it's
like,
sore.
or does she like need to be practicing being a chair? That makes sense.
So
I see so
if
much
she's
of
not
this in her.
integrated,
Right.
if this reflex is not integrated,
And
sitting in the chair will not take place.
Okay,
It's
just
just a natural. It's just a natural.
Yeah, that helps.
It won't help it until we integrate it, and then we have to go back to trying here and there.
Okay.
So that you know how to regulate.
Okay, because I didn't want to like hurt her, like stuff that needs to develop by taking her out of the chair.
I was just about to say,
Walking on the airways, you know, this one that I was saying earlier, having her do 20 of these before she sits down, where it's a feet are flat and her hands are flat, and that's the kid.
very universal information.
I think I watched her do that
Use
too.
this in all aspects of
I think
life.
I watched her do that.
He's like, this is very universal information. Take this with my family. My cousin was here. No, my cousin was here. That's why I couldn't talk to her. She's a tigger.
No, a spider.
The other one is an eagle, and she was.
Yeah, I kept thinking about it. It was so bad. I was like,
I don't know
what?
what.
I felt like I like my tag.
Oh my
It's like that's what it was crawling up my
I
shirt.
wasn't sure if it was a thing of like, some of them like you just like I didn't know if it was a thing she just wasn't used to. You know, but I've noticed more.
Most likely
I've
not.
noticed more and more that I think it's something else besides
Yeah,
just
most
not being
likely
used
not.
to
How old is she?
it. 3, she'll be 4 in September.
I most likely not.
Okay.
Ooh, are these stickers?
Is she short attention?
What are y'all sending me?
Ish, but not really. She seems to follow that like I'm not that that's what she is going on, but sort of like the ADHD model. Like it's something she loves.
That I can print it out?
But if I'm trying to get her to,
New
Ooh, are
challenges,
these
yeah,
footprints?
she's not.
she's not good at yet, short attention.
Yeah.
So it sounds like ETNRS.
Okay.
But,
Is it like
Thank you so
matching?
much.
okay, so animal locks are in here as well. So you can, oh, I didn't mean tap off an area in the hall. You could tape off a little area in your hallway to where they could, and this is just a link that has some fun animal locks in it. Or you can make little cards that have, my 5 favorite animals are to do frog hops, lizard crawl, so lizard crawls are down, commando crawling down that line. A roly-poly, a bear is essentially going into downward dog and walking. And then a roly-poly bug is they're rolling right and then left, and then cat-cow. So, like doing that yoga pose, cat-cow. These are all going to help with reflex integration as well as our great high-intensity movements. Because if you think about the head position, when we're frog jumping, our head's facing the ceiling. When we are lizard crawling, we're down on our belly and we're in that prone position. When we are bear crawling, we're upside down. When we're roly-polying, we're going in a circle, like spinning a circle on a swing. And when we're cat-cowing, it is just our head going down and then slowly coming up, okay? But if you Google OT animal walks, there's a whole bunch of different handouts that would be easy to laminate and cut into cards, okay? And if I hadn't revised my lecture 25 times for you, I was gonna make them. All right, so avoiders. These are kids who actively avoid and are bothered by sensory input. They react strongly to unexpected or loud noises, are very unproductive in a noisy room, more the kid that kind of shuts down in that environment. Could be bothered by bright lights, squints their eyes, covers their eyes or ears, can be more emotional and aggressive when touched by peers or teacher. They can be super stubborn, more tantrums, fearful and easily frustrated, and they watch more than engage, okay? So these are our avoiders. These are sometimes kids that your OT might say is defensive, and they may be. So here are some ideas for avoiders. So they could try wearing sunglasses in the classroom, in that you can't necessarily gear the lights only for them. Or you could find the darkest area of the room for them to sit in. You could teach them how to regularly take an eye break, where they just close their eyes and then they open their eyes. And just have them take more breaks. You're gonna wanna watch your clutter, okay? Sometimes because we have so many materials in Montessori, when we're changing one out to another and in a busy day, things can get a little cluttered, just on the sideline even. So make sure you keep your clutter, have a bucket that you can easily throw your clutter in and move it out of the room. Visual schedules may help, and we're gonna look at visual schedules in a minute. Auditory, you're gonna reduce your background noise, have a quiet space for working. White noise may help them. So you may have an area of the room, once again, for avoiders where there is maybe white noise playing in that area, so it drowns out the talking of the other friends that gets their bubble burst. Okay? These are the kids that you may want to make sure that their noise canceling headphones are sat right on their mat, so that they're in the visual presence of them, that they know they can take that active strategy. And they may be ones that you really want to encourage mom and dad to bring them early, so that they can come into a quiet room, co-regulate with you, warm up, and maybe make their way outside before it's noisy. Touch. Experiment with temperature. Make sure that the room might be too hot, too cold. You might even have like ice packs or things like that nearby that they could experiment with. Avoid light, uneven touch. So simply grazing an avoider isn't very pleasant, unless they're ones that sometimes they'll say they like, like really light scratchies. But that whole hand painting of their body can be way more organizing. And increase time that you might have for them to get their socks just right and their shoes just right, and know that that's just something they have to do. No amount of exposure to that necessarily makes it better, okay? Sometimes people think I just need to have them do it over and over and over and it'll get better. I don't know that in 25 years I've ever seen that happen, okay? That's just how they're run. So finding other kinds of socks and things like that. So they may, movement-wise, they tend to fatigue more. So make sure that you build in breaks for them to sit or to take breaks in movement. When they come in from outside time, they may be more fatigued and harder to get going again. Use routine and repetition in movement, and help, I can't read my help bring work to their areas. So if they really are having a hard time and walking over to get the work is all that they're doing, then maybe create a little bucket and set it next to them, because in the end, then they are actually doing something more, even though they weren't as independent as we would have liked, okay? Because really it's a means of how can I meet them where they are, okay? But sometimes we can drop some of the rules. So they may be the kid that needs the section plate, they need fewer saucy snacks or wet snacks, they need more dry snacks. And give them escape routes for messy play, invite them into messy play, but you know, let's say you're making a Christmas card that has a painted hand on it, you know, make sure you have the escape hatch for them so that they know. So you're gonna tell them, I'm gonna paint your hand and this is the wipe that we're gonna car wash that hand right after. And you're gonna do it with a nice firm touch. Oh, look, all better. Or giving them gloves. And then body position, determine the preferred position, and then make it available when you can. Okay, and that kind of goes for all the different groups. I know I'm flying through this. Simple visual schedule. I love visual schedules. And so does Montessori. Sometimes Montessori loves a work plan though for kids that can't read, that requires reading. And I really, really want you to watch that. Are you giving a visual schedule to a kid that can't read well and with ease, that doesn't have a picture on it? Help them help themselves, okay? So I can send you this one that you can modify. I also love a simple dry erase board. You can buy a packet of 10 little one-page dry erase boards that can be individually placed at kids. And let's say that you have a kid that's an avoider, having a hard time getting started or participating in anything. You're gonna spend your fill-up time with them co-regulating on setting up their morning first 3 things. All right, so you're gonna do the, you see the cylinders over here. You're gonna do the cylinders. Okay, and then let's look around. Oh, you're gonna do the butterfly puzzle? Okay, we're gonna do the butterfly, and draw a little butterfly. And then, and then you wanna have a turnip snack. Okay, so then you draw the carrot sticks. Okay, and this is helping them to have a plan. How many of you like to have a plan? How many of you, the second you make your list, your anxiety lowers? Okay, help them help themselves. Okay, simple visual schedules go a long way with all of these groups. Not the fancy ones, not the 15 laminated pieces of pictures that you're slapping on places, not a static visual schedule. Okay, a static one is the one that you post in the room that is the routine for the day. Those are lovely for the whole group, but they become benign after about day 3, okay? Unless you have a kid with a truly cognitive learning disability, okay? It's that in the moment, stick figure bar nap list, okay? That I find highly effective, okay? But these are fun too. Teacher Pay Teacher has a ton of different schedules as well. So the sensor is the kid that detects more than others, but is passive. So they are the ones that aren't going to get out of the mud puddle. Okay? They don't like the feeling of the mud puddle, but they're going to stand smack dab in the middle of it. So they're screaming for help. Okay? And they might not even scream for help. They might not even know it. But they're the kids that, you know, when they brush up next to you, they're going to, that seems not to register your instructions or even tune out to their name. They're just a little bit harder to reach. They're super distracted. They may be bothered once again by the light. They might be super picky eaters and just avoid all foods. They may struggle to read your more gestural language. So they may not be the ones that you can drop all the language. And they may be the one that it's the 3rd week of school and they still can't find the room. Okay? So similar ideas, you're gonna give them cues on how to scan for items. So you might say, hey Becky, come over here. All right, so here's the sensory shelf. Let's look at everything. I see rice. Ooh, that looks like a fun spring Play-Doh activity. And you might even be touching it as you're looking. And you're just letting them see everything on that shelf. Because probably if we were to put them up, they have like this pinhole of scanning. And they're looking at that shelf. Everybody do that one time. And think about looking at the shelf through the pinhole. I wonder why they choose the same work every time. Okay? Because they don't have a scanning ability. So help them. Show them how. One-step instructions are best for these types. Visual schedules help with shifting their attention. Weighted products can be really, really great for these kids. And I'm going to show you a link in a minute where you can get free weighted products. Provide more space for them. So in their work area, they're going to want to have a wider range maybe than some others. Or they're going to get more accidental brush-ups, accidental interruptions, because they probably aren't going to be as organized, and then more flare-ups. So it's just low-hanging fruit to give them more space. Body position, provide familiar location and seat. So their motor planning is probably going to be less efficient than others. So if they know where they sit and how they're going to sit, that might be helpful. And then always, you may need to break work down into smaller steps for these kids. And Clap Your Hands is the most lovely group of old ladies, some young ladies, that started a program where they're all a bunch of quilters and they make free weighted products, and they're amazing, and I love them. And so all you have to do is say, you can either email me directly or email them, and if they give you pushback because you're not a therapist, email me, give me the weight of your child and what your need is. And I can email them, and then we go and pick it up in one big bolus. They just sew these beautiful things for us, okay? So just, and even think outside of the box of other sensory things that your classroom could use, because they do a lot of fundraising and they're really, really helpful. All right, last one, registration bystander. They miss sensory input. So these are the ketchup faces. They enjoy making silly sounds, but they don't want you to. Okay? They need help to find objects that might be obvious to you. They seem unaware to pain, temperature changes, messy hands and faces. So they're the kids that on our coldest day in December show up in a tank top. They tend to lose their balance and bump into things. They are inefficient. They're loud walkers. They might be described as clumsy, more accident prone. So the kids that maybe have more bloody noses and more bumps and bruises, they tend to do things the harder way than others. And once again, these are the kids that just have a hard time with registration. So select bright colors, speak slower, use your visual schedule, help gravitate to higher texture works. Pair, that meant to pair touch with verbal cues. So, I've got you right here on your shoulder, and sort of tell them where you're touching so that they start to tune into what's been touched. Use large movement before fine movement. They tend to be kids that need a lot of heavy work. Bright colored tape for them to follow a path if they have a really hard time not stepping right on everybody else's work. So pretty colored painter's tape that can show them a path. Big flavors like lemons and big smells again for them. And you want to maybe add some variety to them and where they sit. And then once they find a spot, maybe then throw the heavy blanket to them, and that might help them to ground. Here's heavy work ideas. So fill a bean bag and have kids drag it to a defined space. Fill a bag like a diaper bag, which is miscellaneous things, and they have to drag it from A to B. They could be the watering can work helper. You could indiscriminately have them stack chairs up and unstack chairs. That might be a great thing to regulate right before nap. Jumping into a bean bag, crawling under the bean bag, all the animal crawls, pulling themselves on a scooter board. There's usually some scooter boards out in this area. Wheelbarrow walking with a friend or a teacher, and then of course anything on the playground. All right, so I threw too much at you. I knew I had done that. Sorry. And then we rushed through some really good stuff, so I'm happy to chat through more. But if you were having a hard time reaching a kid, don't wait. Reach out. Reach out to your Sundrops team. reach out to mom and dad and get your communication going earlier than later. Don't let it become a crisis. So much harder to bring a kid back from a crisis than from a little detachment. Okay, this is easier. And know when, and then let, one of the many therapy people that come around here, take a peek. Lots of us are willing to come in and do a screen for you and offer suggestions, okay? Practice good health for you every single day. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. I know at the end of the day, it is so tempting to have that tiny little time be doubled, but your life will be so much better if you go to sleep, okay? Keep up with healthy habits and exercise, okay? Save the unhealthy habits for the weekend, okay? Those are fun, but they will make it so difficult to care for children. Always remember connection over compliance, okay? You will never get compliance unless you've connected, ever, 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 okay? So we know you know the rules. You don't have to say them out loud to the kids so that the people around you know that stomping on your foot was bad, okay? And connection over compliance equals improvement, okay? So I appreciate your attention, and I appreciate you having me today and your interest in learning more. And I will throw some cards out up here if anybody has additional questions when your brain unfreezes from these little things at you. And I'll see you guys around the hallways.
Guess what mom waited to tell us our current mom was all done. At home? You guys. I don't have either of those. I don't know that. Like, even not that I would give it to him, but like knowing that, oh man, I couldn't believe it. I love it. And she really was like, sorry, she was like, oh, I gotta make Zach to take that now. Yeah. Like, these are all I cannot do that. Yeah, we do. An actual baby.
Well, it makes
I was like,